Today, I'm going to be answering some more of your guys' sports card questions. Um, how's it going, y'all? Welcome back. I'm finally back. It's been like a month since I've posted a YouTube video, but we're back with another video. And my hair's kind of looking weird today, but I figured it's time to come back. Wild month. I caught the virus. No, I didn't catch the virus, but I got sick, and we thought I did for a while. And then I was trying to kind of plan out some new content for you guys. I'm hoping to post daily videos on this channel, and just in general, like podcast episodes, but we'll see if that happens or not. But anyway, I figured a good way to bring it back would be to answer some of your guys' questions. So we have 4 of them here. Um, let's get right into it. So, KK_graphs on Instagram asks, Curry or Magic all time when it is all said and done. Now, to preface this, I hate to debate about who's like the greatest of all time, who's better, blah, 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 for one main reason, and that is because the GOAT debate, or just debating about who a better player is in general, heavily depends on what you value as a fan of the game, right? Some people value championships, some people value statistics, some people value, individual skill and like well-roundedness, all of the above, right? So it all depends on what you value, and not everyone has the same values, so it's pretty impossible to be comparing players, and especially when it comes down to like all-time greats, it's hard to compare two players when they're in two separate eras. So it's just very difficult. But here's what I will say on this topic when it's all said and done. So currently, I think many people would say that Magic is top 5. Many would even include him probably as like a top 3 player. Him and Kareem are usually the 3 and the 4 on that list. It kind of depends. And I would personally have Curry just outside the top 10, probably like 15, maybe 20, 20 at the lowest, right? And that's a pretty sizable gap that you still have to make up, especially when you look at some of those players in between. In my opinion, Curry would probably have to win 1 or 2 more championships and get Finals MVP in probably both of those. Maybe secure another MVP award, because he doesn't have quite the same hardware that Magic does. However, his impact on the game and just his 3-point shooting ability, his pioneer, just the way he's revolutionized the NBA as a whole, that kind of gives him a little bit of an edge, right? And, just some of the records that he set, and just by how many or how far the gap is between him and some of these other players is ridiculous. So we got to kind of give him a hand there. And basically what it comes down to is I don't really know if I can trust this team to win another championship or two. I think they have a real good shot, but I'm not 100% positive that they're going to do it, especially because the NBA honestly right now is more competitive than it has been in a long time. You have the Lakers, you have the Clippers, you have the Nets now, you have the Bucks, and then of course you still have a bunch of young up and coming teams. You have studs like Luka, studs like Tatum, studs like Trey, studs like, if you want to throw in, let's say, Zion or someone else in that conversation as well. Like the NBA is very competitive. And I was just talking about teams with like stars or young stars. That doesn't even include any really well-rounded teams like, let's say, the Denver Nuggets or the Phoenix Suns or Philadelphia 76ers, even though I'd say they have stars in Joel Embiid and, Ben Simmons and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure that the Warriors can really get it done. Curry's obviously going to end up as the best 3-point shooter of all time, break all sorts of 3-point records, but he has a lot of space. He's a huge gap to make up, and I'm not 100% confident that he'll actually be able to do that. I'm giving the hand to Magic when it's all said and done. I don't think Curry cracks top 3 or top 4 by the time he retires. Next up, we have Mars Collections, one of my guys, and I know exactly why he asked this question. He asks, who has the most potential, Nick Claxton, Bol Bol, or Sekou Doumbouya? And I'm going to approach this question from 2 different aspects because there's a difference depending on how you want to phrase this, right? First of all, there's a big difference between someone's potential and their ability to reach that potential, right? Like who actually fulfills their potential to the highest extent. Greg Oden had extremely high potential, but due to injury concerns, or not due to injury concerns, but due to injuries, he never was able to fulfill that potential, right? Some players, on the other hand, have been able to fulfill their potential completely and have ended up being extremely, extremely good players. So I'm going to answer this question from both of those. Who has the most potential and who do I think will fulfill their potential the best? So going in order from best to worst, I think that the players that have the most potential are Bol Bol, number one, Sekou Naboya is number two, and Nick Claxton is number three. We'll start a little bit from the top. Bol Bol, he's a 7'2" freak of nature. He has good vision right now, but he turns the ball over a little too much. He can step out and hit a three-point shot. He's actually able to score from all three levels if you really give him a chance. He's got amazing defensive awareness, especially on the interior. His weight is a bit of a concern there, so he's never going to be a great post defender. However, he can go up and contend for a lot of shots, obviously, when he's 7'2" with like a 7'8" wingspan. And sorry, I just bumped into the desk, so the camera shook a little bit. He's also got extreme length, and because he is such a light player, he's actually able to guard players on the perimeter. He's not an elite defender, but when you are 7'2" with like a 7'8" wingspan, it's pretty hard to get around you with ease, right? So he at least makes it challenging for the players for opposing players when he steps out onto the perimeter. And his ceiling is just a demigod of a player, like completely unstoppable on the offensive end. Defense as well is pretty good. You just have to get a better post defender next to him, and all of a sudden I think you've got a very, very, very good team with him as your star. That's like his ceiling. Next up would be Sekou Naboya. He'd be a nice, versatile defender who can guard either the 3 or the 4, potentially the 2 as well, although the biggest concern for him there would be if he's fast enough to contend with some of those smaller guards. He would eventually be able to get better control of the ball and become a better ball handler to maybe even create his own shot. But he'd be a very elite 3-and-D wing with some good potential to create his own shot. And, nothing else. I guess basically what his potential relies on would be how many shots he gets per game, and he could maybe be like a couple time All-Star, like 5-time All-Star is pretty great. 3 or 4 time All-Star. Have a couple of really good years, maybe averages like 20 points to end his career or something like that. Like a really good second option or something like that is what I'd probably say. Sekou Naboya's ceiling. Other than that, I don't think he's crazy high. Whereas Bol Bol is like potential. Best player, not best player, but like top 10 player in the league potential in comparison to Sekou Naboya. And then Nick Claxton, he's all right. Like he'd be a really good starter on your team. He's a great athletic big man with some unbelievable rim protection. He'd be super dangerous actually around the rim in general because on both sides of the ball, not just on the defensive side of the ball, but on the offensive side of the ball as well, because he has a really nice touch around the basket and can also slam it down with a very nice dunk. And eventually he'd also be able to step out and knock down some 3-point shots consistently as well. So he'd just be like your prototypical center that you would have, your basic starter kit for the NBA. I honestly, at his peak, I don't see it getting much better than this, right? I don't think he'll ever become like an elite ball handler that creates his own shot or anything like that. Maybe he's able to step up his mid-range game a little bit and knock down some shots there, but even then, I don't think he ever becomes an elite. I don't think he has the potential to become an elite I don't think he has the potential to become an elite mid-range scorer. I just don't see it in him. I just don't, right? Now, when it comes down to who actually is going to reach their potential, going in order, I have Nick Claxton as number 1, Bol Bol, and Sekou Naboya. Basically, like who's going to be the best when their careers are all said and done. I just think that Claxton has a real nice chance to reach his potential, right? Because his potential isn't exactly superstar type or, multi-time all-star type talent like these other 2 guys are. He's kind of just, honestly, I don't think he gets all that much better than what he could be like right now. Right, I'd say like a 15-point per game scorer, great rim protector, once again a nice athletic big man. Honestly, very similar to a Jarrett Allen replacement, but with better 3-point shooting ability. I'm not saying their play styles are exactly the same, but they have some similarities between the 2 of them. I just think that he has really, really good chance to fulfill his potential to the fullest extent. And when his career's all said and done, I think that he's going to be able to accomplish that. Bol Bol, he already looks really good. I'm really upset that the Nuggets aren't getting him a lot of minutes, and I hope that he and Michael Porter Jr. actually leave the franchise because I don't think that the franchise is doing good for either of them. I think that they would both be better off somewhere else, but that's a whole other subject that we could maybe get into later. However, Bol Bol, he already looks really good. He kind of just needs a chance. The biggest question with him, or not the biggest question with him, but the biggest thing that's going to hold him back is injuries, right? 7'2", kind of a stick man. He runs around a lot. He's not just a stationary player, so he's probably going to have a relatively short career due to like knee injuries. I'm going to guess he's out of the league by about 30 years old, and that's not exactly going to be enough to really mean that you fulfill your potential. Now, I guess I could say that at his prime, maybe he'd be better than, Nick Claxton when his career's all said and done. Even though Claxton would have the longevity on his side, but even then, I've got questions about Bol Bol because he's had such a slow start to his career so far. Like, is he ever really going to get that chance in the future, or are people going to be too concerned about injuries to really give him a shot? I'm very worried about that because I think personally, and I think a lot of you guys know this, I love the kid. I think he's got a ton of potential. We'll see what happens, though, right? We'll see what happens, though. And Sekou Demboya, I don't think he's ever going to reach his potential, unfortunately. He's a very, very, very raw player, always has been. He's super young, though, so, maybe he has that chance to reach his potential. But Detroit sucks at a lot of stuff, and developing players is one of those things. I don't think that he's going to get it done. If he had more... If he had more technical skills in his toolbox already, then I would have higher hopes for him. But he's just a very, very, very raw prospect. And like I said, Detroit just sucks at developing players. I think that at his peak, he's probably like a solid starter, maybe a backup. Honestly, I really wouldn't be shocked if he just ended up being like a solid backup that gets end of the rotation minutes. Throughout most of his career, unfortunately, because I like the guy, but I don't think that the future is bright for him, especially because he's in Detroit. Now, this kind of relates to something that the next question, which is from bstores_iv on Instagram. I hope I said your name right. He was asking for my thoughts on Sekou. I kind of just gave it to you guys. However, one important thing to note is I was actually planning on recording this video a week ago, but I didn't, so now I'm recording this now, and there's been some developments with Detroit. They traded Derrick Rose to the New York Knicks, and I said that Blake Griffin would be next. And today or yesterday, I believe, the Detroit Pistons have officially announced that they're waiting for, I think, a buyout offer for Blake Griffin, and they're just going to be sitting him for right now, which means that Sekou Demboya gets more time. And if Blake Griffin is eventually actually traded, then I think Sekou's prices rise a lot and gives people a nice opportunity to sell. So if you have any, I would wait for that time to come. But if you don't have any Sekou Demboya, don't really look into buying a ton of it. Maybe if you really believe in him, pick up a couple of things, but I don't really see the potential for him, especially in Detroit, like I said. Final question comes from Matt Schwab 22. He asks for an underrated player in the 2020-2021 NBA draft class. I love this because I've told you guys so many times before that Patrick Williams is my favorite player out of this class. Excuse me. And I believe in the kid a lot. I think he's going to end up being the best player out of this class, and I don't want to go too in-depth right now, so I will give you another pick after this, but let me touch up on Patrick Williams just a bit. A bit of a raw prospect, but he is very much Kawhi-like. Very much Kawhi-like. He's, I think, 6'7", with a pretty sizable wingspan and massive hands, and 245 pounds. If the Bulls can teach him to create his own shot, basically just meaning if they can help him to put his shoulder into the defender more often, right? If you're driving into the lane, put your shoulder into the defender and then step back, all of a sudden you've created a lot of space, because when a guy comes burling down the lane at 245 pounds, there's not going to be a lot of guys that are heavy enough to, withstand that impact of a 245-pound man putting his shoulder right into your chest. And the players that are heavy enough to do that, like let's say Joel Embiid, are going to be too slow to keep up with him because he is pretty fast, especially for a player that weighs 245 pounds, right? So ultimately, he's got a lot of physical tools that can help him. I would go more in depth, but I don't want to reveal much more than that because, like I said, I do want to make a video on the guy relatively soon here. So I'll go with my other underrated pick, which I've talked about many times before. There's actually a lot of underrated guys in this class. I like Tyrese Maxey. I have, since before the draft was even announced. I think Precious Achiuwa is a great defensive piece for the Miami Heat, or just in general. I don't think he ever becomes like a superstar, though. But I really like Tyrell Terry. Recorded a record-breaking, highest basketball IQ that they've seen. Excellent three-point shooter off the dribble and in the catch-and-shoot situations, meaning he's very similar to Steph Curry, and he's drawn those comparisons of, off-ball three-point shooter, and he's able to create for himself and other teammates as well. I know he's never going to reach that potential, but I think he has maybe 20-point per game potential at his peak for a season or two, near all-star caliber player. And considering that he was picked number 31 overall, I think that there's a play there with his cards if he can go out there and, play pretty well. Even if he doesn't score 20 points per game, his prices are going to be super low because of his draft position and because he's not getting a ton of minutes yet with the Dallas Mavericks. And it won't take much for his prices to rise because he is a pretty talented kid, and I think he's going to be able to put up like 10 or 12, 15 points a game, realistically speaking. And that's not bad as far as young players go and how it affects their prices, right? So I think that he's a bit underrated both as a player because obviously he was picked number 31 overall, but I also think that his cards are going to be pretty underrated once he starts to play more. So I would look at maybe picking up a couple of, whatever, silvers or something like that and just holding on to them until he really gets an opportunity. But that's all I have for you guys today. I know that there was actually a couple of other questions that you guys put up there, but I'll be saving them for, the next Q&A that we have. If you did enjoy this, go ahead and, check out the rest of the channel, maybe subscribe, or if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening to this, check out the rest of the episodes that I have posted. In the description will be a link tree on both YouTube and Spotify or wherever you're listening to this at. There will be a link tree in the description with my Instagram and YouTube and all that sort of stuff. All my other social media platforms will be linked there, so you can definitely check out a lot more of my content on those platforms as well. But once again, thank you for tuning into this episode, and I will see you guys next time.